on mute and let Stephen give you guys some mentorship and some different insights that maybe you haven't heard from another speaker here at Seven Eagles. So, Stephen O'Hearn here from Areté. He's going to pronounce that better in a minute because I didn't do a very good job at it. But Stephen's a 20-year retired Air Force Master Sergeant, right, Steve?
Yes.
And lots of experience in talent acquisition. He actually used to work here with us at Seven Eagle. We lost him to obviously an amazing company, which is bittersweet, right? Because we lose a valuable team member here, but we get to watch him go on and succeed and provide more opportunities for this community and the veteran community at large. So I love that. Love the fact that, Stephen, that you were willing to come back and join us on Seven Eagle Academy and impart some of your wisdom on this group. So I'm going to be quiet and let you take over, and then I'll just jump in with any questions that I have along the way, because I'm sure I'm even going to learn something here, and I'm excited for it. So give Stephen a warm welcome, and I'll pass it over to you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Really excited to be here. I did work with Seven Eagle before in the past. Absolutely loved it. Learned a lot from them. Learned a lot about myself with them. Like Tyler said, I am retired Air Force. Spent about 10, 11 years in Air Force recruiting. Now working for Areté. Tyler, that's how you say it. I think it took me like a week to get down how to say the company name. So totally understand. So I'm talent acquisitions over here. We are a small defense contract company. We do a lot of research and development. Great company. We're spread out across the U.S. A lot of technical, really work with like a lot of really smart people, way smarter than me. I tell people I got a real dumb brain. I just talk well. That's why I'm in recruiting. So no, it's been good. But I've been wanting to jump on here for a while. The reason being is my transition was tough for myself. I had a 20-year career. I was proud of it. Felt like I had a strong resume, lots of professional skills, leadership ability, and just built something great. And then I went through a divorce and having a hard time finding jobs. Mental health kicked in, leaning too hard on drinking as well. And I'm getting a little personal, but just to kind of give you guys, like, hey, it happens. I lost who I was. I lost my purpose. I was a recruiting flight chief, ran an office for 5 years with eight people under me. What was I doing now? Worked with Seven Eagle Group, went and actually cleaned swimming pools for a little bit. I was applying for jobs just after job and not hearing anything back, getting ghosted. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit too. Couldn't find anything. I was just came from a dual income household down to just my Air Force retirement, drug my feet on get my VA benefits. So please make sure you're on top of getting your VA benefits. Please, please, please. It is very important. It took me about 6 months to get mine. So with all that, like I really didn't know what else to do. I was like, so I cleaned swimming pools. Pay wasn't great, and it just hit me. And still, I was still lost. Like, yeah, I got a job that kind of helped, but I'm like, this isn't fulfilling whatsoever. So, so I definitely want to talk with you guys a little bit, about the interview process and things to do. Talk to you guys about from the talent acquisitions perspective, right? Give you guys some examples of things that I did wrong going through some of this transition period when it comes to doing interviews, right? Being in recruiting for so long, I thought it would be great, like, but interviews felt different. Now that I'm being the one interviewed, not getting any feedback, not hearing back from anybody, even from the interview process, right? Prepping for those interviews. I cannot stress enough the things that you're learning right now with the Seven Eagle Academy is priceless. Okay. The networking, the resume prep, working on those things. I'll give you guys some feedback on some things that I like to tell people as well to work on. Please, 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 if you take nothing else away from Seven Eagle, networking, resumes, and interviews is so crucial. Between Tyler and Jordy puts great videos out. I still watch those videos and it resonates and it's still true to this day. Everything that he talks about is so important. So, talking about a little bit of interview prep for myself, I applied for a few jobs. One of them that I struggled with was for a senior recruiter role or recruiting manager role, and I prepped for it, right? So, one of the tips that I like to tell people is I take the job description, I run it through AI, I tell it to make those into interview questions. I take my background, and then I go through and I answer those questions to the best of my ability, right? Just like when I hopped on earlier, you guys were going over a script. It's just practicing that, right? I still did all of that when I got into the interview. I was on a panel. There's 6 people on there, all staring at me on a camera, and I could answer a lot of those questions. I could give the detailed information about recruiting, what needs to happen, but I found myself struggling to still demilitarize what I was talking about, right? Well, in the Air Force, I use this system to pull this data, right? But they don't understand that, right? So it took me a while to really try to figure out and refine that process. So didn't get that job, right? They call you, hey, we really liked you. You were great. You might be a better fit for our senior recruiter role. Didn't happen. Okay, on to the next one. Um, Interviewed with another company. I helped people get jobs at this company. I knew who the company was, worked with them, knew what they were about, knew people that worked at that company. Again, got people hired at that company. They got me in with an interview. And you're going to have some hiring managers that will really kind of guide you through the interview process, right? This was not. It was, hey, tell me about yourself. Well, as you guys have learned, you have your elevator pitch, right? Keep it short, keep it sweet. She said, hey, tell me about yourself. What did I do? I just talked, right? The recruiter came out of me and I just was like, this is all about Stephen O'Hearn. This is what I've done. I'm accomplished. And da, 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 da. And then she's like, well, you pretty much answered all my questions I had for you. Another key, very important thing, please always, always, always make sure that you have questions ready for the interviewer. I didn't have questions, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, I know what this company is about. I know what they do. Everything I just already said about them. I was like, no, I don't really have anything. Call my buddy. I'm like, hey, man, like, yeah, I just got done. He's like, cool, let me call you back. Calls me back. He goes, yeah, man, didn't go great. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, she said you over talked. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I was mad. I felt like it was a kick in the gut. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what's wrong with this person? Right. And then I really had to do some reflection. Like, okay, did I overtalk? Reached out to one of my mentors. He's a director of talent acquisitions. Another key thing I want you guys to really try to work on, I encourage you to work on, keep your responses to the interviewer 1 to 2 minutes, no more than that, right? Yes, there are going to be some instances if they're talking with you, obviously keep engaging in conversation. If you're applying for a very technical role, yes, you might have to explain a little bit more, right? But try to keep your responses tailored to 1 to 2 minutes, okay? That way you're not over talking. And then, so that job obviously didn't work out. And then I was still just applying, applying. Applied to Areté. Honestly, forgot I applied to them. That hiring manager reached out to me and they put my resume somewhere in the bottom of the stack and kind of forgot about me. And he was going back through resumes. And luckily, he's like, oh no, this guy has some good qualities, attributes. Let's give him a shot. So luckily, I got hired with these guys. So going through this whole process, right? I've explained like I lost my purpose. I was beat down, right? I'm applying. I'm not hearing anything back. Then I'm looking back. I'm looking through my old evaluations of things I'm doing that I did in the military, trying to ramp up my resume. I'm like, why can't I get a job? Like it hurt. I was down, you know. The one thing that I always kept saying to myself is something will work out. It will pan out. Just got to keep trying, right? Through this whole transition process, I really, really encourage you guys lean on your people that are important to you, on mentors. Give yourself grace through this whole process because it is challenging, right? Some people may not find themselves in that boat, and that's okay. But you're going to have people in the same boat where it's going to be a struggle. Um, Talking about kind of like the talent acquisition side of the house, right? Just kind of from my perspective, doing interviews. I do a lot of interviews. I do try to help out the people that are transitioning out of the military a little bit more. So I did an interview with a guy. He applied for one of our roles for electronics technician role. Got him on the phone. We're not on Zoom. We're not anything. Just on the phone. I'm asking him questions, and I could just hear him walking around. I could hear him drinking water, just very distracted. And so we got done. I got done with my questions, answered his questions. I said, hey, man, can I give you some feedback? He goes, yeah, absolutely. I go, you got to get somewhere quiet. You got to make sure there's no distractions. I could hear you drinking water. I could hear you walking around. And it's not any fault of his own. He's not used to this stuff, right? We're not used to as military members being prepped for interviews and having to do this, right? We've known everything was given to us, provided, everything was very structured for us. Now we're going into a world where it's not. You don't know how hiring managers, what their preferences are. There could be another candidate just as good as you, but they chose the other candidate and you may not ever get any feedback on that. Um, or even from the talent acquisition side sometimes, and I personally don't like it. I try to give feedback or at least let people know that we're not moving forward. And unfortunately, you're not always going to get that feedback from people. Okay. Um, it's kind of get a little frustrated with it, take a deep breath and be like, okay, well, let's just keep applying. When it comes to interview prep, resume prep, I'm a big advocate ensuring that you guys are taking a resume, tailoring it to each job that you're applying for. I do use AI. Please make sure it spits out what you've actually done. I've used it before, um, and it has spit out stuff that I've never done. So please make sure you're tailoring it to that. Another key thing, I read resumes for people that have gotten out of the military and submitted. Run it through AI and tell it to demilitarize your resume. Okay. I cannot express that enough. Okay. Um, to be honest, from my perspective and seeing, hiring managers don't really care about the awards that you've won or that you won Airman of the Year. Sorry, I know I'm Air Force talking, but Airman of the Year, or you won this award, or you did this great over here. They don't really care. If you have your awards and decorations at the bottom of your resume, they don't really care. They want to see your actual relevance to that job and your education, right? That's really all they care about, to be honest with you. Um, so again, I mean, there's a lot of aspects that you can't control in this whole entire process. Okay. Um, Stay strong through it, right? Um, Again, reach out, talk to people, lean on people if you're going through a hard time with it. I cannot advocate for that enough. I'm big on mental health and going through this process. Okay. It is just coming personally. It took a toll on me. Luckily, something did work out and pan out for you guys. Yeah, that's kind of all I have.
All right, folks, here's what we're going to do. Anybody that has questions for Steven, please throw your hand up now. I've got some queued up that I've wanted to ask a little bit about, but throw your hands up. Don't make me the only one that asks questions. Steven's a wealth of knowledge, so take advantage of it. And we have a few minutes here, quite a few minutes here, so let's take advantage of the time. All right, brother, would you mind telling us a little bit more about, I'm going to have to scroll back up to my little thing. Areté, could you tell us a little bit more about Areté and like sort of your mission and culture there and what it's like being a part of that team?
Yep. So that's one thing that sold me on this company was culture. Kind of I'm going to tie some of this in to again knowing your worth, knowing what you're looking for in a company, right? My big thing was the company culture. We all have heard of Raytheons and Lockheeds and all the big primes that support the DoD. And DoD is comfortable for me, obviously, given 20 years, but I didn't want to be part of the big prime. I didn't want to be part of the machine. I was already in that for 20 years. Um, but also the technical side of being in recruiting. So that stood out to me wanting to come over. But as soon as I did my first interview with Areté, I could just tell like the company culture, like that's what they hit on. They're like, what's important? I was like, company culture. They're like, perfect. They're like, everybody's super easygoing here. You can walk in, talk to anybody, ask questions, get feedback. I was like, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Our mission is we are a research and development company. We are a small defense contract company. We're still about 400, and 75 employees across the nation. So we work a lot with radar, lasers, we do a lot of optics and sensors. So like we have our own in-house lasers that we built and optics that we build. So like the example I use is we have a maritime program here out of Tucson. Don't know why there's a maritime program in Tucson, but we do. So like we're helping the Navy, assisting them with putting our products on some of their UAVs so they can do underwater mine detection from the air. And then they also have another product that they use that's unmanned vehicle in the water using our sonar and our optics so they can do underwater mine detection. So that's like one of the programs that I'm knowledgeable of and know about. We do have some areas where I don't know because I don't have the clearance level for it. So yeah, it's a really cool company. I've getting new here. I'll walk around. There's a lab literally right across from my office working on a gimbal unit, and I'll just walk in there and be like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Can you tell me?" Because trying to learn. I've been here 4 months, and every single person's office that I've walked into or a lab, super inviting. Just, hey, yeah, come on in. I'll tell you what we're doing. So yeah, the company culture is what sold me. And I'd like to work with professionals. I did health professions recruiting back in the day, recruiting doctors, medical students for the Air Force. And then I learned I was like, okay, I really like to work with professionals, and also work with really smart people that stuff that I would never do. I'm not smart enough to be an electrical, mechanical engineer or a scientist.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds cool. I don't live in Tucson, but I know you guys have good weather there, so good, cool opportunities. Jared, what's your question, brother?
Hey Steven, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So former Air Force recruiter, also over here.
Good buddy.
Um, so um, As a talent acquisition specialist right now for Areté, you know how we used to, like back in the day when you were a recruiter, you had goals and everything for the month. Do you
Right.
kind of have that same thing going on at your company?
So for us, not necessarily. I mean, there's kind of like, or the directors of HR will kind of give us like a soft, like, hey, we'd like to see you hire, so many people a month. But they really take into consideration how many people that we're working currently, and the efforts that we're putting into that. So before I got here, it was just my supervisor as the only recruiter for the company, right? For like 3 years, just grinding. So they brought me in. So it's just him and I. So we don't have like hard numbers that we have to hit. They just want to see the efforts and that we're moving people through the pipeline. The hiring process is outside of our hands because we have a 3 interview step process. And so we're not the decision makers whether they're going to get hired or not. I mean, we can submit, people, 3, 4, 5 people to the final interview process and not one single person make it through, right? So we don't necessarily have hard numbers to hit. They do like to see, a couple of hires a month, but there's nothing like set like that for like it was in Air Force recruiting.
So would you say it's like kind of just a little bit less pressure than what you have? Like, hey, you have 5 to put in on that month or something like that, like how we
Yeah,
did
it's
in recruiting.
Yeah, it's definitely less pressure. It's still different. I would say my first 2 months here was like drinking water out of a fire hose because I
Oh,
felt like I'm sorry for people that aren't recruiters but your first year in recruiting is probably one of the hardest years you'll ever experience in military, and I will say that 10 toes in. Um, it was like my first year in recruiting, but I knew how to recruit and do the recruiting process. But literally the first day I started here, I onboarded for 3 hours and they put me on a plane to Oakland to go to a career fair. So it was literally jumping, like threw me into the water and like, let's see if you can swim. Granted, I went there with people so they could help talk about the company. Because at the time, I mean, I knew a little bit, but not enough but recruiter, I can talk. So
cool. Thank you. I'll message you on LinkedIn a little later.
yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Awesome. Megan Rowe.
All right, so not on the work side of things. I'm a huge mental health person. What advice could you give to someone with kind of a similar background of all the shit that you went through transitioning?
Um, it's gonna be different for everybody, right? Seek out, honestly, seek out help. And I say that not to sound rash or anything, but get into therapy if you need to. It's reprogramming your brain to think and go through and deal with the mental health struggles. I went through a lot my last 4 years of being in the military. Again, getting personal, divorce, everything else. And I'll dive in a little bit more. I was sent while I was in the Air Force. I was sent to inpatient rehab. Um, so yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it's just that continuing work on it because it doesn't stop, right? It's always advocating for yourself and getting the help that you need and sticking with it. I mean, I've tailored off a little bit just because I feel like I'm in a better place now. And once things start to fall into place and just trying to stay positive and stay on that grind, and like the one thing I always kept telling myself was something's going to work out. Something's going to work out. I know something's going to work out. It's probably taking longer than I want it, but it's going to work out. So it's staying true to it, really engaging in it, and giving everything you have into your mental health because I think it's so important.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Rebecca Jones.
Hello. You
Hello.
mentioned something about interviews not really caring about like decorations or awards. What about like, for example, getting like a highly effective tool on a stab for something that you built and like that does go
Yeah.
along with the
Yeah,
job?
yeah. So for that, like I equate that to like that's quantifiable, right? You did this. There's ways and when I keep, I always, no, sorry, I keep mentioning AI, but when you do have it, when you run it through and have it demilitarize that, it will still take your awards and decorations if you kind of spell it out and put it more in like civilian terms, right? So if you did something that improved a process or improved something hardware wise, definitely want to have that on there. They're going to care and want to see those things. Something that's quantifiable that you did something and here's what the result was.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice. Derek Rodriguez.
All right, how's it going, Steven? You doing all right today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm actually very interested in your company already. So I was gonna ask, do you guys have a skill bridge opportunity?
Not currently. I am trying to push that right now with the powers that be to advocate for that because we do have some roles that I feel people that are transitioning out. Some of our electronics roles that we have open right now. We'll have some of our like security analyst roles, sysadmin, IT sysadmin roles. Um, I'm trying to get that going. So as of right now, no, but I am working on it.
Well, that sucks because I was gonna ask because my job actually in the military really correlates to what you guys did, and I have a clearance because I worked with a lot of the navigation equipment and the gimbals and all the radar equipment as well because I worked on a
Yes.
submarine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's something I am currently working on, talking to, my leadership as well, and then potentially working with Seven Eagle. So we're gonna get something worked out here pretty soon. We're scaling up right now, so to be
Mhm.
able to have that, and I've already kind of pitched it a little bit. But yeah, more to come on that. Just, make sure you guys connect to me on LinkedIn. You can always have a direct line to me that way, and then we can always connect, and then keep you informed on that. When do you separate?
May 6th,
Okay.
5th.
Okay.
Would it
One
be
of the
smart
days.
for would it be smart for Derek to apply to the position on the website as well as connect with you? That way there
Yeah,
we can
I would
that's
say
sort of like
definitely connect.
that's sort of like a proof of concept to your team of like, hey, we've got some of these transitioners applying to the roles.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, connect with me on LinkedIn and then let me look over your resume, make sure, just have everything's copacetic. And then have you apply and then I can let the hiring managers know like, hey, this is what we're working, this is what we have. And then also again to prove that value to the HR director, like, hey, this is why we should do this.
Oh, follow-up question. Do you guys have any locations in Texas, North
We do
Texas?
not. So no, all of our positions are going to be in Healdsburg, California, Northridge, just is north of LA, Colorado,
Mhm.
especially for like the laser production and optics stuff right now. Tucson, I think I already said Colorado. I think I already said that. We have
Falls Church.
Virginia, Falls Church, Virginia. We do have an office in Huntsville, Alabama, but we're not hiring to anybody there. And we have a small office in Florida as well, but we don't have any hires going there either. Right now, all of our openings are for Arizona, Colorado, California, and Tucson.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Denarius, did you have a question for Stephen?
Yes, sir. So, first off, thank you for speaking with us. Just like you, I have experience in HP recruiting doctors, nurses, medical school students.
Oh yeah.
I want to see when you're looking for applicants, are you doing a lot of cold calling or is it like LinkedIn? I'm used to cold calling, and that's something I like. I'm good at it, but I hate cold
Yeah.
calling.
Same. So I actually don't do a lot of cold calling. When I got in the seat, I mean, through our systems, because we advertise on LinkedIn, we advertise on clearance jobs, we advertise on Indeed, and I think on one other place as well. We get a lot of candidates who just come in naturally that way. Since I've been brought in, I've started doing on LinkedIn recruiter side, building pipelines for candidates, doing the send outs that way. But not really any cold calling. I mean, we'll have somebody apply. If the hiring manager wants to move forward, then I reach out to them all through the system, set up an HR screen. But no, not really cold calling anybody, which is not a bad thing to have, right? I mean, we have such an influx of candidates coming in, so it's not a bad problem to have.
What advice would you have for Denarius, Stephen, who's someone who's trying to essentially follow in your footsteps, not necessarily with Areté, but be like leverage his recruiting experience to get into a recruiting slash HR type of role at a company?
Yeah,
What pointers would you give him?
absolutely. Number one is fortunately sometimes, especially with recruiting, it's about who you know to get into a company. You can always hit up the bigger primes that are looking for recruiters. Key thing for you is going to be ensuring that your resume is very demilitarized to apply for those roles, right? And giving your talent acquisitions background, but also breaking down every single thing that you did for your experience, because you and I could talk about recruiting all day long in depth because you and I understand it, right? But maybe if you're giving that information to somebody else, you're not going in depth. So especially for like you're applying for a recruiting role, break down everything you did, whether it's cold calling to tracking, data analysis, right? That's a big one. They want to see if you have knowledge of how to analyze the recruiting data, right, to be successful, especially if you're applying for maybe it's a senior recruiter role. Your sourcing methods. What are different ways? What different sourcing methods would you use if if there's a technical role or a hard to fill role? How are you going to go? What is your thought process and how are you going to get that role filled? So it's having that information, and you already know that information, honestly. It's just being able to break it down and speak it clearly and concisely.
Thank you.
Mhm. One thing I wanted to add, I meant to mention earlier, because I'm guilty of it, is when you guys are talking in interviews, try not to talk fast. I'm horrible about it. I get in and I start talking and I talk quickly, and I caught myself a few times when I was talking to you guys earlier, but really try to like slow down when you're talking, right? It just comes off a little bit better, more clear. I mumble when I talk, so I really try to slow down when I'm talking, so people can hear me. But it happens sometimes even with nerves, right? Get a little nervous, talk a little quickly.
How many
Imagine if
interviews would
English
you
was your
say?
second language.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over that. Whoever that was.
That
I was
was
just
me. I
gonna
said, now
say,
imagine English was your second language. I'd be mumbling really bad.
Yeah, gotta talk nice and clear.
how many interviews would you say that you do weekly? Like either phone or over Zoom or whatever. Like, what's the workload look like?
Mm, I've done anywhere from depends on the week and how quickly the hiring managers are moving forward with letting us know who they want us to interview. Um, I've done anywhere from like 8 to 12, 15 in a week. Sometimes I've done 5 to 6 in a day. Doing that whole process. In my process, I do the interview, I draft up the summary, submit it to the hiring manager, build a folder, send them security documents. So yeah, I mean it gets busy. And then we're about to travel again I'm leaving next Monday to go to UC Berkeley, and then I'm pretty much gone all of February, and then March and April. So
So a lot of traveling. Do you think traveling is common for recruiters or just for your company?
it's going to depend. Honestly, it depends on the company. Depending on the company's structure, there are companies that have like part of the recruiting team is that they go to events. That's what they do, right? So it just depends on how it's structured. If it's a larger company, you're going to have those people that are going out to the career fairs, and that's kind of their main job is sourcing lead generation for them. So
Yeah.
ours is just a little all inclusive, just because it's just two of us on the team.
So right now I'm looking at your job board. I see 27 openings. And by the way, I'm asking these questions out of my curiosity, but also trying to help the group understand too, because I know a lot of these folks, and you mentioned like the bigger prime contractors. So just to give them an example, comparing a company like Areté to like a prime, you have 27 job openings right now. How many like applications / resumes would you say come in per day? Total,
Oof.
all those open jobs.
In total, probably well over 150 easily per
So
job
150, so 150 resumes or applications per day.
per day. And some are more than others. I mean, we opened up that, if you see on there's that science aid that opened up. That's been open since I think last Friday. And there's like over 130 applications already.
Just
And
for the one
so,
position.
yeah, it's a science and engineering aid.
So we
So
teach, as you know, we teach this group like, networking is everything. Networking is
yes,
key. And
yes,
and we're looking at a company with 475 employees. And then we have another defense contractor that's a partner of Seven Eagles that's about 1,600 employees. And
right.
then let's take like so that's basically 3 times the size. Then let's take a Boeing. How many employees does Boeing have? So
Ton.
so extrapolating that out, hey, if somebody can look up really quick, this is going to be an interesting thing for us. Someone look up how many employees Boeing has. So with a 475 employee company, if they're getting 150 applications per day, right? Multiply that for 3 times 3. One of our other partners has 1,600 employees, so they're probably getting 450 applications per day. But I'm waiting for someone to drop in the chat. All right, so 17,000 or 170,000. Holy smokes! All right, so
Right.
check this out: 170,000 divided by 475, and then we'll multiply that times 150 applications per day. So Boeing's getting probably 50,000 applications per day. I used to
Easily.
say thousands a day, but I didn't know 50,000. So that, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but that sort of proves the point of how important networking is and talking
Yeah.
to, and I'll turn this into a question for you too, Stephen, is I tell these guys every day that they should be connecting with veterans that are either in the role that they want to do or at a company that they want to work for. And then, you know, the hope is that number one, you build a relationship, you're building your network, but showing genuine interest and care for that person that you're connecting with. And you're not hoping for an outcome, but if you do that enough times, eventually someone's going to introduce you to someone like you that's then going to fast track that person into an
Right.
interview. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's definitely value to that, right? You know, and it is going to depend on the company. I mean, when I was with Seven Eagle, it was when I had to go connect with people, right? Being on the sales side of the house. With these bigger companies, trying to get to the CEO or the COO or the CFO of these companies, it was connecting with a veteran first, right? And doing that. Same with you guys. It's connecting with a veteran in a company. They may respond to you, they may not, and it is what it is, right? You might make connections with 50 to 100 people that are veterans in companies and maybe not really get anything back, or you'll get the, oh yeah, let me see what I can do. It's going to happen, right? You know, but it is trying to build those genuine connections. And I know you guys really harp on that, and it's so important. You know, you talked about the other thing too, and I hear Jordy say this all the time, which I absolutely love. When you're looking for jobs and you're looking through LinkedIn, Jordy says it all the time. If you're applying for a job on LinkedIn, you're already behind the curve, right? I cannot stress that to you enough, because if you have, you know, through your LinkedIn membership, you can see how many applications there are, you know, how many people have applied. I always recommend going directly to the website, but if you're looking at somewhere and there's 500 applications that day, I mean, you can throw your name in the hat, but it's going to be tough. You know what I mean? It's going to be very, very tough. So definitely checking out websites, just doing your research on companies that you're interested in, and seeing if there's smaller companies instead of a Boeing, right? Okay, well, is there another aviation company that's smaller that I could go work for? And one thing I'd like to add to you guys, and this isn't lost on me by any means. I know us being in the military, we've all moved around and we want to get somewhere and settle down, right? Something to consider is if you apply for a job and it is not where you are, or apply for jobs that maybe aren't where you are, sometimes you gotta kind of chase the job or the money, right? It's not always great. I know some people that are retiring, they're like, I'm done moving, I got a family, I want to settle down. That's why I came back to Tucson. I absolutely understand that. But at one point, I was even considering, I was like, I can't find anything in Tucson. Like, I'm gonna have to move somewhere else. So something to keep in your mind, that maybe if there's a job you really want to get into and you're getting feedback from that company, maybe something to consider. Okay. Obviously, it's circumstantial. Not everybody's going to be in that same boat, but just something to think about.
There was one more that I had. If anybody has any other questions for Stephen, go ahead and raise your hand. We get those answered. This is good. I like the direction of this. There was something else I was thinking about as far as oh, I remember now. So not all companies are as good as Areté at promoting their open jobs. Not only that, but correct me if I'm wrong, but is Areté the type of contractor that is going after different and new contracts all the time? And so there might be jobs that you know about that come online or that are coming before
Right.
they're even posted to the job board. So that's the other thing, sort of to your point, is like making friends with veterans at these companies. You have a little bit of an inside track on jobs that before they even get posted.
Yeah, yeah, no, we definitely know, you know, my boss more than I do. He'll go like, "Hey, we have jobs coming down. They just haven't been posted yet." I'm like, "Cool, what jobs are they?" You know, knowing that software engineering roles are going to come down, you know, more laser technician roles are coming down, right? Because we are growing. We just got an award. We're a part of the missile award that is like a I think $115 billion contract that's spread across different companies. Not, we didn't get that whole award, but like we're in that. So like the company for us, we've been around for 25 years, or no, almost 50 years, sorry. Um, and we've just, the last 5 years, we have taken off, and we're going to continue to grow. So yeah, we're going to keep bidding on contracts, trying to get these awards, you know, to help support the DoD.
All right, I got one last one, but if anybody else has any, like I said, throw your hand up. This is my last one for you. This is going to be the hardest one. This will be the hardest one yet.
Uh-oh.
In the last couple weeks, I've had a few people that are just absolutely striking out. Like they're like,
Right.
I've done everything you said, Tyler. I've done everything Jordy said. I've done everything that I've learned through all the speakers and mentors at the academy and cadre, and I just am not getting any bites. Like, what is some last ditch advice? Maybe some gold nuggets or something that you learned when you finally, when you landed your role at Areté, like, or something you maybe learned along the way. Like, what's some last ditch advice when everything we're saying doesn't work? What can people do?
What I really had to do was take a step back and look at myself and what was I doing, right? I have all the advice of again, all my history, my employee history, working with you guys, being involved. What was I doing, right? And it's just refining that process. Even if you think you refined it, I equate it to, and a little more for Air Force, I do apologize, but when you're going to test for rank, how much time and effort do you put in for that? You put a year, not hopefully, not wanting you guys to try for a year to get a job, but you know what I'm saying? Like relatable, like you're trying for a year. You're doing all these different, you're taking advantage of different applications to study with. You're trying different ways to study, right? Oh, it didn't work last year or last time I did this. Let me change it again. Is even if you think you're hitting every single mark, take a step back and look at what you're doing, right? Could I approach this a different way? I can't tell you what that is necessarily because I'm not you, right? And advice, definitely take the advice that people are giving you, but being able to have some of that like self-awareness and being like, what am I doing? And honestly, it's just trying to keep that positive attitude. I know that just sounds kind of like, okay, guy, like cool, stay positive. You gotta stay positive. And I already said it, not to beat a dead horse here, but knowing something will work out, right? It's again, know your value, know your worth. I know you guys mentioned it as well. Maybe the job you're applying for, you're gonna have to take maybe a step down on what you're actually applying for. You gotta humble yourself. I cannot stress that enough. I went from applying from director of recruiting roles, because if you looked at my resume, what I did, I'm I'm a manager or director of recruiting, right? Nothing. I'm like, man, I'm gonna go down to just basic recruiter roles. Had to humble myself, right? I know my skills and abilities. Well, okay, I just got to get my foot in the door, right? Because
Yep.
the one thing that we do have, and I meant to mention this earlier, and I've had this said to me from a couple people, us as military members, civilian world doesn't necessarily know what we bring to the table, right? We can talk in an interview, we can say all these things, I'm a great fit, you should hire me, so on and so forth, but they don't know. They don't know the adaptability, the leadership skills, those soft skills that we all have, that when we get in and figure something out into a company, because it's going to be a transition period, that you're going to outperform all the people around you, right? They don't understand that unless you have somebody that's prior military, obviously, that's on the hiring board or a recruiter, right? But it's humbling yourself that maybe you're not going to get that $100,000 job out the gate, right? You're not going to get the supervisory role, even though you spent 20 years in the military, or you were this rank when you left the military. It may not work out that way. It's okay. It is absolutely okay, right? Important things to ask. Hey, what's the growth look like in this company? What are the growth opportunities in this company? Please ask that question. If that is important to you, or if you're just like, nope, it's going to be this, you're going to be at 60K, no growth opportunities. Okay, well, maybe it's a filler, but ask for that growth. So okay, all right, I'm going to take 65K. I know in 6 months to a year, I'll be up for a salary raise. So I'm going to get in there, learn it, do well, kick ass, excuse my language, and then just outperform everybody else. You guys have it in you, right? It's
Yep.
just once you get in there, it'll start to click.
Yeah, I think that sometimes veterans have to start out lower than they had hoped, but then they move up the chain quicker than they thought they would.
No, 100%. And I think part of that is one, it's where we came from, right? And also when you were getting out, we're going through all these transition briefings, right? And it's know your worth. You guys got it. It's going to be all these things. I disagree. It can be that to a point, and it's not to knock the transition programs, not like 7 Eagle, but like the ones on base. Yeah, that's great if it lines up for the right person, but it's not always going to work that way. You know what I mean?
Yep. Nick, what you got?
Just had a real quick question. What's your thought process or, I've never been out of the military. I've joined the military when I was 18 years old, lived my whole life in the military, and it's pretty much raised me into the person I am today. I say all that to say, what's your opinion on transitioning from active duty to like a government affiliated organization versus going into the commercial sector, would that be an easier pathway, or are you pigeonholing yourself and just going military 2.0? Because that's kind of something I'm like debating about, and I don't understand. Like, I can't like figure that piece out for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a level of comfortability for it, like with me. It's familiar. I don't have a technical background, so it's still a little kind of outside my comfort zone. Obviously, talent acquisitions is right up my alley, right? Um, but finding that culture, right? I think some of the bigger primes, and I just know this from people, and you guys might know people as well that have worked at the Raytheons and Lockheeds, and you're a number, right? You're an absolute number, just like you were in the military, right? You're done, next man up. That's how it works. With this company, like, could they survive without me? Absolutely. Okay. Like, I'm not Mr. Superhero over here, but I can tell you, if I left tomorrow, my supervisor would hate his life. Again, because it would just be him handling every single thing and new implementations that I've put in since I've been here to try to ease the process on things. So I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think for me, it's because the company culture, I don't feel like it's military 2.0. It's just a more familiar space, but I am kind of removed a little bit because my focus is just mechanical, electrical engineers and scientists and software engineers. I didn't really, when I was in the Air Force, even doing the recruiting side, it was still just recruiting at the end of the day. So it's still a little bit different, but only really you, man. I hate to tell you this, but only really you can figure that out, right? That's kind of the best answer I have on that. Or if you want to like pigeon it or pivot and go a completely different direction, try it out and see what happens. It's definitely a trial and error for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of transitioning out of the military as well as utilizing SkillBridge is try something different out. Like, we're all familiar with the military, we're all familiar with the GS roles, we're all familiar with the big contractors. This is your chance to break free of those chains if you so desire, and try something else. And then if you're like, oh, that's hot, I don't want to do that, like, then go back to the comfort zone. But it is worth taking this opportunity to pivot if it makes sense for you and your family, I think.
Yeah, and I
And
think, and I'd say for my role, like I'm not a GS employee, right? Like we are a government contracted company, but I work for Areté. I'm not. And again, it's just the way we're structured. We're just structured differently, and just again, and I already said this like 14 times, but it's just the culture of the company here is way different of how we operate. So if I was in like a Raytheon or Lockheed, and you asked me that question, I'd probably have a little bit different answer for you for sure.
You'd be the company man. And you're a recruiter, so I don't know how much I trust you anyway. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, these
are the guys you got to make friends with right here. These are your ends right here.
Yeah, I will say I never lied to anybody when I was bringing them in the Air Force. I used to tell them if a job was going to suck, it was going to suck. If you're going to be security forces, you're going to check IDs for the first 2 years. If you're aircraft maintenance, you're going to be on the flight line and stay there especially if you sucked, or they're going to hide you in a back shop. So it's definitely very honest when I let them know what they were getting into. It wasn't always going to be rainbows and sunshine.
That's that goals right there. He will never lie, cheat, or steal.
Absolutely. And just being your authentic self, goes such a long way.
I appreciate you for coming on today, Stephen, and I'm glad we got a chance to catch up a little bit. Granted, we had an audience of 95 watching us catch up, but no,
Yes,
man, I appreciate what you're doing at Areté. Appreciate that you came back and helped us out here today. I think some of these folks got some valuable insights, maybe some ideas, maybe some of them are interested in connecting with you further. It's been really cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, everybody. I appreciate you guys for bringing me back. Let me come back as well. It's definitely important. Please, guys, if you want, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Just give me a day or two to make sure that I can go accept your friend request. I do try to get in there daily, but please definitely connect. If you have questions, comments, concerns, hit me up. If you just need to vent about something, I'm here for that too. So, or if you're just frustrated going through the process and you just want somebody to talk to, I'm here. So.
If it's about me or Jordy, go vent to Stephen about it. He'll resonate with you. No, I'm just messing. But hey, I appreciate you, dude. Have a good rest of your week.